Hey, Scott Spears along with you on this week's episode of The Exchange. Matt Morgan along with me here, and as many of you know, Carrington Nelson is on vacation, and she'll be back soon, but we're so glad to have the 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, with us the last couple weeks here, because it has been a busy 2 weeks, and as we tape this on Wednesday night, there was a primary election last night here in Ohio, which was fascinating on a lot of levels, and Matt had some questions he wanted to ask Mary Ellen in regard to all the political goings-on that have been happening as of late. And I should mention, just give you a little taste here, we'll announce this in the upcoming weeks, on Eclipse Day here in Marion, April the 8th, there's going to be something going on involving Mary Ellen, and we'll let you know more about that as time goes on. So get ready for that. All right, Matt, what's on the agenda with the elections in the books last night and former President Trump coming to Ohio and news galore? What do you think?
It's been a really interesting time as of here recently with the political season going on. As far as the election goes, I'm honestly surprised Bernie Moreno did as well as he did.
Over 50% of the vote.
I don't think he had any political experience. I do believe he was a car salesman prior to this.
That's all you need nowadays. Just sell cars.
So without any experience, he managed to pull over half the votes with a endorsement from Donald Trump. So that's a little mind-boggling.
Do you believe it was the endorsement that did that?
I think so. I don't think that had Trump not been endorsed by Bernie Moreno, and I think that had Bernie Moreno's ads not been playing like basically back to back on the TV during like the Super Bowl and things, it wouldn't have gotten as far as it did.
Where does that money come from, though? Because clearly President Trump does not have a lot of cash right now.
Well, you need to look at Moreno's when he pays his quarterly or whatever the length of time is that they have to turn in their money, see where it comes from.
Is there now a Trump party and a Republican party?
Yes, there's two parties. Yeah, definitely.
Now, what do you define the Trump party as? What is their belief, or what is their purpose?
Just following Trump. And the other Republican Party that's been here for years and years is a good party, and they had good beliefs, but it's all been terribly disturbed by Trump.
You know what's interesting? Somebody said to me this morning, now the Democrats in Marion used to have the big FDR breakfast.
Oh, yes.
Do they still have that?
I don't know. We had it the year Chris ran for governor. I don't know if they had it last year or not. I think they had it 2 years ago when the gal was running for, what was she, commissioner? Remember the gal?
Oh, yes, I do remember her.
She was a good candidate. We ought to get her running for something else.
She'd had a son who had committed suicide. I remember she was very open about that.
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, very, yeah. Boy, what was her name?
Well, she was relation to the Finnegans.
Yeah, I do. Oh, boy.
And the Finnegan, Judge Finnegan was, let's see, I think it was her uncle. Could have been her uncle, yeah.
She was, and she ran for commissioner, didn't win, but,
She was qualified.
She ran against Dr. Davis, who I think appealed to a lot of people.
Yeah, but she had a good background. She works for a bank, and she had a good background for the job.
I was curious because I used to cover the FDR breakfast. They used to invite the media to that.
Yeah.
And I have not heard anything this year about it.
I haven't either, but I might not. Well, if they didn't have a quorum at their last meeting, they're having trouble.
Having a little bit of trouble there.
Yeah.
And, you would think in a presidential year,
yeah, you'd think
something might happen, but I guess...
Yeah, Joe Biden would come and warm things up.
Something at this point needs to be done there. So, Matt, you had a question about Peter Navarro, who was... Now, Peter Navarro was one of Trump's associates who got in some trouble, and I guess now has went off to prison.
Yeah. So what do you make of the first of We'll say that to be hopefully many indictments of the Trump's officials. So the first of, like I said, hopefully many of Trump's senior officials have been found guilty, and he was sentenced to jail time.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot. Steve Bannon and who are some of the others?
Roger Stone.
Roger Stone. And
I mean, I know a while back there was a whole bunch of people who worked with him at the time who
the general
of his co-conspirators who
Yeah.
flipped on him and who became I guess witnesses against him.
But I think he pardoned all those, the
well,
fraud
he
Roger
pardoned
Stone.
some of them, but he didn't get them all pardoned, did he? He pardoned Steve Bannon.
And Stone.
I think Steve Bannon's bad. Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting because do these people going to prison, does it mean anything at this point?
Well, what if I was going?
If they were going, yeah. I guess they won't be voting because they're in the penitentiary.
No, some people can vote.
If you're not a felon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But do people, I guess the big question here in all this is, does anything turn the Trump voter off at this point?
Well, I hope so. I hope they get turned off.
Now, Matt, it's interesting. We talked about this last week, but I think it's a more in-depth conversation to have because now we've got RFK in there and we've got, what's his name? Chase Oliver. I thought that was right. Chase Oliver for the Libertarian Party, and Jill Stein is in there again for the Green Party. But this is an important election. We've got talks of bloodbaths, and we've got talks of dictatorships, and so on and so forth. Is this a time to be voting for a third party?
I mean, I support third parties personally. I don't know that this would be a great year to vote third party. Like I said last time, I was going to vote third party in this election, but then I started to lean more towards Biden, and then he said some things in the State of the Union that I didn't necessarily like. So,
Now,
back to some middle ground here.
No, wait a second. So what made you lean his way?
When
you had decided on a third party, and then you said you leaned toward Biden prior to the State of the Union. So what brought that in?
Leaning toward Biden?
Yeah.
Joe Biden has had a lot of political experience. He was in the Senate for a long time, and he's now been president.
Vice president.
Yeah, and he's vice president. And Donald Trump had been president, and that was that. And I didn't.
Maybe that was that. We'll find out in November.
I didn't personally like him as a president, so Donald Trump wasn't really an option to begin with.
So then you saw the State of the Union and were turned off a little to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Correct,
What turned you off?
During the State of the Union address, he had made a promise to ban assault weapons and some of the modifications that people put on their weapons.
Why were you against that?
I mean, I don't know that I support the banning of assault weapons, and I don't know that. I mean, in terms of I guess like the extended magazines, there's no real need for those, I suppose. But I mean, like it went from like background checks I was cool with, but so it went from background checks to now wanting to ban assault rifles. It's kind of like the give an inch and they take a mile kind of thing. Like prior to, there used to, there were background checks, but they used to not be so, I guess in-depth background checks. And now there's more in-depth background checks, but they're just making it harder for people who want to go through the legitimate routes to own a firearm to get a firearm.
Yeah, but the assault weapons are unnecessary. They're just for killing other. When you're in war, and for animals and so forth. I mean, I really don't think they use them on animals, though, do they?
My understanding is if you used one on an animal, you couldn't even eat it.
You couldn't eat it, yeah.
Because
it's too severe.
Well, so the 22s the most of the ARs that we sell, I guess, off in the market, are like 22s, or they're just like AR designs. They're not actual ARs. Like I have a 22 rifle that's semi-auto. Mm-hmm. And my cousin has a 22 rifle that's semi-auto, but his looks like an AR. So that gun would probably be banned, whereas mine, which does the same exact thing, it can hold just as many bullets, would not be banned just because of the design of the gun.
I mean, if you pull the trigger, does it just keep shooting?
No. You can't buy a fully automatic weapon. Semi-auto is like each time you pull the trigger, it fires.
And what did Biden say he was going to do?
He said he wanted to ban assault weapons.
And that's what you have?
I have a 22 rifle.
Yeah.
Is that an assault weapon?
No.
See, but the term assault weapon is more so just like what you use the weapon for. We have assault weapons that we use, but like AR stands for Armalite Rifle. The man who made the AR, I don't know if I think his last name was Armalite, so they named it the Armalite Rifle.
Okay.
And then we just at one point said AR. We use those in combat, so that must mean assault rifle. And then the assault rifle term just kind of stuck.
Yeah, but it's the gun that shoots constantly that he's against.
Isn't that what he's talking about?
I mean, we don't we don't sell fully auto weapons, and I mean like you can buy we don't sell fully auto weapons, so you can't buy a fully automatic weapon. But I mean you could turn like a Glock, like any old standard 9mm Glock into a fully auto. You can't buy the I don't know
Stuff to do it?
Yeah, you can't buy the piece to do it, but
Okay.
with 3D printers and things like that, people 3D print a lot of parts, and they have these little I'm not sure what it does basically, but it basically just stops the gun from fully recoiling. So when you shoot, it just it'll hit the thing, and then it just keeps firing.
Oh, yeah.
So it essentially turns a Glock that's single shot, semi-auto into a fully automatic Glock 9mm.
Yeah.
Now, Mary Ellen, when you were running for office, I'm sure you got asked a lot about abortion and guns. People like to ask those questions.
One of the first questions I got was if I was for guns, and I said I was, because that was way back before guns were a problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the first school shootings didn't happen until the late 90s, the mass school shootings. So this would have been much prior to that. But, I mean, it is very hard. That's a big issue for a lot of people, guns.
It is now.
It is now.
Yeah, it's because we've had everybody on Earth getting shot, yeah.
But I guess the question is, what else besides that? Because, I mean, I don't think anybody agrees 100% with any candidate. So what else is a problem beside the gun thing?
I'm not a fan of taxes, just like everybody else, but I don't think that increasing the taxes on rich people is the answer for the entirety of the solution. Also, he said that he wanted to give people $400 a month for a mortgage, which isn't, I mean, it's not a terrible idea, but if you give people $400 a month for mortgage, the odds are they're probably not going to use the $400 a month for mortgage. And if they do use that $400 a month for mortgage, then they're probably just going to use the $400 out of their money that... Sorry, let me go back a bit. If they use that $400 for mortgage, if they force it to be used that $400 for mortgage, I don't think that people would put their own money toward the mortgage. The $400 would take place of the money that they were already putting toward their mortgage. So they would just start using more of their money than what they need to anyways. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the argument to where people were just going to spend the money. If somebody who was making $13 an hour got a $7 raise and they were making now $20 an hour, they would still spend that entire paycheck.
Well, I think a lot of the money that went out after the pandemic didn't go to the right places. I think that's something that happened. I'm not, because personally I know some people that got it, and I never got anything. And
me either.
You did either.
No, nobody sent any my way.
So I think it is. You've got to be careful on how you do that, but the rich people are not taxed the way they should be. I think they need to have, it didn't happen the way it should have. When Trump was in office, he made it different for the rich people not to be taxed very much, less than, say, a school teacher. And that's not right. Yeah.
You know, this is an interesting point because we say rich people. Now, what is a rich person?
Somebody over a certain amount of money is what he said. I was trying to remember what the amount was.
It was like 200 and some odd $1,000.
200,000.
He said
A year?
he said that anybody
Yeah,
who makes
okay.
anybody who makes under 200 and some odd $1,000 a year won't have to pay as much in taxes.
Well, isn't that the majority of people? I mean,
Well, yeah, but I think that's the issue. I think if you take the majority of the tax money away and then just start taxing the 1%, it's not very efficient because the 1% now has to make up for the other 99%.
Oh no, we're still being taxed. He didn't say that.
Well,
I don't think we do away with taxes.
No,
no.
Everybody
but
still pays.
I mean, just overall less tax. I mean, like, I don't know that taxing people less is the way to do it. I think that we should probably focus more on spending less money. And
I don't think you can force people to spend less money.
Well,
though.
no. I mean, like the government, as to like not, like Social Security, not like axe it overall. Just like I think Social Security could probably use a little bit of work. I
don't think a lot of people make a lot of money on Social Security.
No. Wait till you get there.
Because
and we pay into it. It's our money. We pay into the whole system. If they take it away, they're taking away our money.
I mean, don't
Yeah.
most people on Social Security make between $1,000 and $2,000 a month? I mean, it's not a big, huge.
It's not a big amount.
I think the majority. That's
No.
because most people aren't making $200,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, your check-ins. I mean, could you imagine living on $1,500 a month? I don't know where you make those cuts.
I think a lot of people make around $1,500 a month.
About 15, yeah. But that's groceries and that's rent and that's if you're still in driving, that's gasoline, that's your insurance, that's a lot of things. I don't know how you live on $1,500 a month. That's less than $500 a week.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do that.
I think they do it, but I think we can't. I don't know. You want to cut that back?
Well, I mean,
any
I just
further.
think that supplementing people's income just incentivizes people to spend more money.
But I don't think Social Security is a supplement. I think they're retired.
Well, so okay, in terms of like a retirement is different. Okay, so like retirement,
Talking
yes.
about like disability.
Well, I mean, no, because if yes, I guess disability, but I think
Medicare.
there are a lot of people who are on disability who don't need disability and things like that.
It could be. It could be.
It could be, but I don't know
Yeah.
how you go through and start changing that.
I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I just don't.
It's like welfare. I don't know how you who gets it and who doesn't, and what's the qualification. I mean, in this country, when it comes speaking of taxes, I mean, if you have a kid, you get a big tax return if you're a certain age. You don't have any kids, out of luck. So should you have kids to have
Well, what is
I
the
think you're
amount?
incentivized to have
What's the
kids.
amount per child?
It's quite a bit. I think it's over $2,000. I think it's
Is
like
it?
$2,400. And if you're a single person with no kids,
Mm-hmm.
zero.
And that's you.
I know. I'm in the zero category. I follow the zero range. Yeah, but as honestly, I don't listen. Obviously, you have more expenses if you have kids. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, they're expensive.
Absolutely, and I understand that. But if you don't, I mean, I might have to go have some kids now just to get that tax return because
You could adopt.
I could adopt 18
Yeah.
years of good tax. But yeah, that to me seems a little much because I don't think that we're spending that I think it's $2,400. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I know it's over $2,000. But if you had two kids, that's $5,000, and I don't think you're probably spending that on the child.
Well, it depends on how much they go to the doctor.
That's right. That's right. And that becomes a thing too. What income bracket you're in.
Yeah.
That's a big thing as well.
All of that is very interesting study, but I agree with you, Matt. I think we ought to cut back on spending. I agree with that, but I still think that rich people ought to be taxed more than what they are.
Now, isn't it, I mean, when we look at our economy, though, isn't the truth, I mean, the welfare programs and what do they call them? They call them what's that word they call them now?
Social services.
No, they call them something. They lump them all together. Entitlements. Entitlements.
Yeah.
Entitlements, I don't even know if they call Social Security an entitlement now, but all those things that are tax dollars and people pay into, that is not the country's biggest drain financially. The country's biggest drain for a long time has been military spending, whether we're in a war or not in a war. We spend a lot of money on B-52s, and we spend a lot of money on pensions. And I'm not saying we should ignore the veterans, but that's where a good portion of the money goes.
I mean, I think there are a lot of people who want to have their cake and eat it too in this sense. We're like in terms, I'll use the war in Ukraine for example. There are a lot of people who, prior to the war in Ukraine, were wanted to spend a lot less on the military and defund the military. But then when Ukraine hit, they wanted us to send a whole bunch of money and supplies over to Ukraine. Well, you can't send the supplies and money over to Ukraine if you don't have the funding to do so.
I think didn't they just give a raise to the military? I think they just got a raise.
Well, and I think, see, the Ukraine thing is a little complicated because if you don't send them aid, eventually it looks like we're going to have to put soldiers in the way.
They're gonna go after Poland.
Right. So do you want to do that?
Yeah.
I mean, I
don't know that.
I don't think. You know what? If somebody went to the United States and said, "Hey, listen, you don't have to spend anything," I'm sure we would take that option.
I don't know that Vladimir Putin would go for Poland.
Oh, he's.
I mean, I know that I understand.
Who would have thought he'd went for Ukraine like he did?
Well, I mean, I don't know about all that. I mean, but like months before the invasion, they were performing offensive tank maneuvers on the Ukrainian border, and everybody was like, "Hey, Ukraine, you might want to worry about that." And Ukraine was like, "No." They do that all the time.
Well, because Putin has been
in office.
I
don't think that you
since the late
show force
90s.
on a border like that unless you intend to do something with it.
No, right, but this is 20 years in. I mean, he didn't do that like first day in office. Mm-hmm. This is 20 years into his term. He didn't do anything like that. And and by the way, things people don't know about Putin. Friendly with George W. Bush. Said he felt bad for the United States on 9/11. He came out during that time.
I don't know. If you watch that interview, he's going a little over the top with it. He did say he felt bad.
Yeah,
for
now
it, he said he felt bad, but he was like, in a way, I almost felt. I don't know if he used the word guilty or something like that, but I was like, I'm sure.
I'm
certain.
In any event, though, we didn't think that then. Obama met with him. A lot of people did. When he really got negative toward the United States, when things really started to fall apart with him, is when Hillary Clinton went over there as Secretary of State and said, standing next to him, "Your elections are phony." And that really ticked him off.
So she's at fault.
Well, I don't know if she's at fault, but that's why he went after her so heavy in the election.
Yeah.
Was that, you remember that, don't you? When
Yeah.
And I don't think he liked women to begin with.
No, well, he's got a girlfriend.
He does.
He's got a daughter too.
I just think he didn't like a woman telling him.
Oh, probably not. Because he looks like the type.
Yeah, and I think Colin Powell had never done that. Condoleezza Rice had never done that. And here came Hillary Clinton, and she was a strong Secretary of State, like her or dislike her, and she said, "Putin, your elections are phony," and that's why he went after her so heavy during that election.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's when we really got on a bad footing. I'm not saying it was Hillary's fault, because their elections are phony. He throws people in prison and kills them. They're never heard from again.
Yeah, he just did that.
But like, as far as like Russia invading Poland, invading Ukraine turned out to end up awful for them. Like it's been like they thought it was going to take a few weeks. We're in like what, year 2 now?
Yeah, but I don't think
it's going on 3.
And so and everybody thought from the beginning Ukraine wasn't going to last because everybody thought that Ukraine's military was so underdeveloped compared to Russia's, and then turns out it was Russia's military that was so underdeveloped compared to everybody else's.
Well, we've helped prop them up.
And Poland is actually in like a gym in Europe right now. Like Poland is people are leaving the United Kingdom to go to Poland. People are moving to Poland to find jobs and things. So like, I don't know that attacking Poland after struggling this hard in Ukraine, which is a country that many people thought would just get steamrolled, is that good of an idea for Putin.
But Mary Ellen, wouldn't they be steamrolled if we did not fund them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we didn't fund them. We didn't fund them until they held the invasion off of the capital, until they actually managed to gain their footing.
Yeah. They were living on our contribution, and they really need it now. Yeah.
So I don't know. All I know is that I think the spending there is probably to avert bigger spending, because the last time we had a full-out war in this country, boots on the ground, was Iraq and Afghanistan, and I believe we're still paying off those wars.
Yes, thanks to George W. Bush.
So there you go. So, and what can you...
I had to throw that.
You had to throw that in because, well, that's where it started. I mean, that's where it went. But
They should have elected Al Gore, and we wouldn't have had that.
Might have been a little more diplomacy there. But the thing of that is people never talk about that. There used to be in this country, Mary Ellen can attest to this, there used to be a war tax. If we wanted to go to war, they taxed you right then.
They did?
Yeah, there was a war tax, I believe.
I didn't remember that.
I think that was World War II the last time they did that.
Well, I was pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after that, people aren't going to pay for a war. So the president, whoever that is, has to put it on the credit card with China or wherever. And that's how we do it. And then we just pay it off.
They kind of do things like that still. I mean, they obviously don't institute a tax to pay for the war, but they do like war bonds and they do the war stamps. And
we don't do nearly as many war bonds. We used to do war bonds, and George Bush did away with it. I mean, he did away with the whole safety system that we had. Yeah, that happened right after. Well, it happened right after I left. Yeah.
Well, do you know those bombs that they drop? I mean, do you know how much one of those bombs costs?
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds? Oh, I think more than that even, maybe. And we drop them constantly on countries we don't like. Now, can you imagine how we could fund Social Security and these entitlement programs and so on and so forth if we just weren't dropping bombs?
Well, the issue is, I mean, so...
And by the way, Iraq is the only war in the history of this country that we attack somebody who didn't attack us.
Yeah.
In terms of, I guess back to the Social Security.
So how could we attack Russia, though, by the way? We're not supposed to attack a country that didn't attack us. That used to be our rule.
But
Right.
we're not,
we had a rules
we're
at
not,
one
we're not
point.
attacking Russia. But also, I would say that we almost provoked Russia. We had a treaty with Russia saying that we wouldn't go past this point in terms of putting people into NATO. And then I don't remember who it was, but it wasn't a person from the United States. I think it was either from France or Great Britain. They were quoted by saying that we never intended on following through with that clause, and we just kept on adding people to NATO right along the way there.
Well, they wanted to get as many people in NATO as they could.
I understand,
to help
but
us.
I mean,
protect us.
They made a deal with currently at the time it would have been the USSR to not get any members of NATO past this certain point.
Well, yeah, it was the USSR that was thinking that, but we just got Belgium. That's a new country that we just got because of what's going on.
We also just got, it was either Finland or Sweden.
Sweden.
Now, why is it a bad idea to have...
Oh, it's Finland.
Finland.
It was Finland.
Oh, was Finland?
Now, why is it a bad idea to have more people in...
Well, no. I'm not saying it was a bad idea to get more people into NATO. I was just saying that, like, prior to putting those more people into NATO, we had made a deal with Russia saying, we won't make NATO past this line. So, like, in theory, we could have, like, it was kind of like... They wanted to make sure, it was kind of like a safety thing for Russia to make sure we weren't going to put NATO right on Russia's border and then stack everybody on that border and then attack Russia. It was kind of like, so we were just supposed to go to like a certain, like, I'd have to look it up. There was like,
yeah, I wish you would because I don't remember anything like that.
It was, I mean, it would have been like right after World War II. So
Okay.
it was.
Well, that's... But,
And then we made that deal where we weren't going to extend NATO past a certain point, and then we just kept it right along going anyway.
But that's kind of apples and oranges, though, because after World War II, they had a dictator in Joseph Stalin. They don't have a dictator, I don't think, anymore.
They were killing people right and left.
And the USSR dissolved in the late 80s, so it's not even there when they're breaking this deal, I guess, because it became Russia after. USSR was a lot of area there. It went under Gorbachev.
Yes.
It went under.
And what Putin wants to do is to get it back. Yeah.
So there you have it. But you know what? We are going to take a quick little break here because we did not get to finish up the conversation on the bloodbath and Bernie Moreno, and we do want to cover that ground. I think all we got to was Navarro there. So we're going to come back and finish up with the program right after this. Hey, Scott Spears back here with Matt Morgan and 40th Treasurer of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, talking about election and a whole lot of other stuff. So I guess where that whole conversation before the break went was some things that Biden said during the State of the Union turned you off, but we haven't went to the other side. So what turns you off about Trump? Because you said in the beginning that's just a no chance.
So if you ask, funnily enough, if you actually ask my mom she'll tell you that I did like Donald Trump when he was first elected, but it was more so I would defend Donald Trump against my mom and my aunt because I felt like they would needlessly bash him for just random things, but I never really liked him. I mean, if you go back to, like, the beginning, like, I mean, he never really had any solid points, I don't think. I think he just kind of, like, when he was against Hillary Clinton, everything he said, Hillary would just, like, make a, like, for instance, like, one thing that sticks out in my head, I was watching the debate, and Donald Trump said that he was going to put harsher restrictions or something like that on the border to keep Mexicans, or the illegal Mexicans, from taking jobs. And then Hillary Clinton chimed in and said, you would know all about that, wouldn't you, seeing as you use the illegal workers to build Trump Towers. And then, and then you, like...
Yeah.
And then, there's, like, after that, you kind of just watched him stop. He wouldn't make points anymore. He kind of just, like... Anything that she would say, she's not going to do that.
You know what I'm interested in?
I think that's when he almost started attacking people.
I'm interested in you arguing with your mother and your aunt. I think you just like to do that.
I think that's all that was.
I do like to
take
argue.
the opposite viewpoint.
Yeah.
I like to argue.
Yeah.
I won't lie there.
Now, it's interesting, though, to me that your mom and aunt were not for Hillary, or they were not for Trump. So that's interesting because, you know, that maybe what does Trump in is the women vote.
I hope so, yeah. You know, why would any woman like Trump? He's so terrible to us, you know.
Well, it's very interesting, his take on things when it comes to women and the things he said and so on and so forth. So, okay, so we get past that to the point of why no Trump in 2024?
Oh, right, yes.
Yes, that's where we were going.
Well, because just like
we'll get it back on the tracks here.
Like if you, like I said, if you look at what he had done previously, I don't think he ever really made much points anyways. And in the last debate that I watched with him, he kind of just, Joe Biden was asked if he wanted to defund the police, because that was a big thing at the time. And Joe Biden said no, he actually wanted to increase funding in the police for better training and to get them, like, psychologists and things like that. And then Donald Trump just said he's not going to do that, he's going to defund the police.
Yeah.
And then that was basically the entire debate. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
So, like, I genuinely almost felt, like, secondhand embarrassed for the country. I was like, other people from other countries are going to watch this and be like, man, what is happening over there?
That's the reason I don't want them to debate, because it's ridiculous.
Nothing much comes out.
No.
Now, if they could have a fact checker there, and they could shut people's mics off, I think they would be more helpful.
Yeah, that's very necessary. Yeah.
And also, like, when he was president, like, he took a picture at the church that's across from the White House.
Oh, yeah.
And there were protesters there at the time, and he had the protesters, they were peaceful protesters, he had the protesters tear gassed and hosed out of the area so he could go do a photo shoot.
Yes.
And one of the protesters who was there was actually the priest, the priest of the church. So, like, the priest wasn't even there when he, got the whole picture with his hand on the Bible. I would almost bet you he walked over there, got a picture with his hand on the Bible, and walked straight back.
Yeah, he did. That's what they said he did.
So the ultimate question here, this is the first presidential election you'll vote in.
There was a lot of abuse of power, I feel like, when Donald Trump was in office, and I don't think that is anything that anybody should support. I think that January 6th was an insurrection, which, again, I don't think you should be supporting an insurrection.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, Donald Trump is just, he's just crazy. That's just the best way to describe it. He's just crazy.
But he does have some support.
He does.
He does.
Well, because
we don't know why, but he does.
I think sometimes people don't really pay attention to the things he says, and he just speaks like such, and like an amped up, like you versus them, like, way that people just kind of like, I think they just kind of like his energy. I don't even think they know what he talks about half the time. I think they just kind of like the energy that he gives up.
But people are very personal about that. I mean, if you are a Donald Trump supporter and you say anything negative about him, boy, they get very upset about that. They take that very personally. It's strange because I don't know. People support who they support. But I don't know if people have been so defensive about a political candidate in a long time. I mean, I remember all kinds of things that were said about Obama when he was in office, and I don't know that people were so defensive about that as they are about Trump. It's different.
Okay.
I mean, now when I don't know, do you think he's got some kind of different fan base than other presidents have had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Donald Trump nailed it on the head when he said that he could shoot somebody on like Fifth Avenue or whatever, and nobody would even blink or nobody would even bat an eye.
That's what he's doing.
And here we are. So I get the first presidential election you'll vote in. So where do you end up?
You see, I don't know. I'm still contemplating here because
You're an undecided.
probably.
So you're in that column on CNN that's over here. The undecided voters.
It'll most likely, as of now, end up being Biden.
Because.
Because I don't think the RFK really knows much about politics or what he's doing, and I don't think Donald Trump has really much of an idea what he's doing. I think he's just kind of making the plans as it goes along. So I think Joe Biden has the most experience, and I think he is probably the best option here.
Well, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what brings you to where you've come, Mary Ellen?
What brings
I mean, you've been there for a while on the Democratic side.
That's an interesting question.
Well, it's interesting because you don't have to tell me who, but was there ever a Democrat running for president that you did not like?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but what do you do in that
I
particular?
didn't. You don't vote for him, but I don't vote for the other
Don't
side.
vote for the other.
No, I just don't vote for president. Well, I did that a few times for governor. I didn't like the governor candidate, and I didn't vote. But I'm going to vote this time.
Now, it has been, I would imagine, a while, though, because the people involved in the presidential elections have been people you've known.
Mm-hmm.
Obama,
Yeah.
Biden,
Oh,
Hillary.
yeah. It goes... in fact, let me think back. Maybe it's just the governor situation where... Remember that guy that the Democrat was just a mess
In recent times?
for governor back about 12 years ago.
Oh, Fitzpatrick?
Was
Right against Kasich?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and of course I wouldn't vote for Kasich.
I interviewed Fitzpatrick.
Did you?
Oh.
That guy was crazy.
We spent the whole conversation arguing about his driver's license. I couldn't
What
figure that
about it?
Why? Kasich was running this thing, but this man couldn't even get a driver's license. And I was asking him
Oh,
about
I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, I said, why don't you just get a driver's license and put this to bed? And he just did not like that. He
No.
wanted to talk about, and I said, if you hear that interview, it's,
It's a dandy.
it's,
Yeah, I remember. I wouldn't vote for him. Yeah.
yeah, Fitzpatrick, I'm pretty sure is what it was.
I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah, he
But
was,
what was he, a past policeman or what was he?
he had been something, yeah. He
was
had
in the police
a dec-
area.
and that was why the joke was about his driver's
Yeah,
license, that he couldn't get a driver's license, and he'd been in some kind of was he working in the Attorney General's office or something like it was something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
But there have
Yeah.
been some doozies over the years,
Yeah.
you know, and he was interesting. He was in it. I'll tell you who was another interesting candidate in Ohio was some of the people we've had run for mayor. You know,
Here
in
in
Marion. We've had some interesting mayoral candidates that
Oh,
didn't
we
win.
had a dentist that ran
Yes,
against.
Gilsdorf.
Yes, he was terrible. Of course, I was gone during that. Yeah, I
Good.
didn't hear all that, but I heard about it.
Yeah, that was Gilsdorf,
Yeah.
and we've had some interesting folks run for office over the years.
Yeah.
And I don't, Nan Whaley, who I had on a lot. I don't know if there's anything negative to say, but she was an interesting candidate.
And she wasn't a good candidate.
No,
I didn't think she was a good candidate. And you got to have a strong governor candidate for the rest of the candidates to do well. And everybody lost, and it was a disaster.
you know, some of the most interesting people, now that I think about it, it's fascinating to look back on it, but I found Dennis Kucinich very interesting when he ran for governor. I found
He's a strange person.
he's very strange, but
Yeah.
he is a, what would I call him? He's kind of an off. It's not a Donald Trump personality, but it's he just doesn't care.
No.
He just whatever.
Nonchalant.
Kind of, yeah. And he wanted me to hire his wife, and
Wasn't she a mail order bride?
it could.
I think that's
don't-
true.
I don't remember, but it sounds right.
I think that's right. I think she came from a different country.
I said, why do you want me? He was divorced from her.
Yeah.
I said, why do you want me to hire your wife? And he said, well, it's my child I want taken care of.
He was
And I didn't hire his wife, by the way.
Well, Dennis Kucinich started out as this boy mayor from Cleveland. Now, people did seem to like him then. He challenged the power companies and all that and got into all kinds of trouble. And then he became senator. He did run for president. He was on the big stage for a while. And then they redistricted that area, and he lost his seat. And then he slipped in there for the governor's race last time, or with Cordray. That was the Cordray year.
What happened to Marcy Kaptur yesterday? Do you know?
I think she's still in there.
Somebody was, I don't know if it was a Democrat or who was running against her, but I know she was having campaign things.
I'm pretty sure because I think I saw that story last night.
Okay.
And she's the one who took out Kucinich when they redistricted up there in that area.
Yeah.
But now Kucinich, he ran for governor, and then he tried to go back and run for mayor of Cleveland again, and he couldn't even win that. So now he's kind of off in obscurity. But I will say this about I have one Dennis Kucinich story that I think is important. When Dennis Kucinich was running for governor, and he was in second place in that primary, he had a guy working for him. Can't remember, but he's a PR guy. And I wanted to interview. They were having a debate. It was a Democratic debate, and that was an interesting year. They had Cordray and Kucinich and that judge O'Neill.
Yeah,
Bill O'Neill.
Yeah,
and they had all these people. And I said to Kucinich's guy, I said, if we come up there and cover this debate, I think it was in an outskirt of Cleveland. I said, is Kucinich going to do an interview? He said, you'll have the first interview. Well, we go up there, and the media room is filled. Television stations, newspapers, radio stations, and I'm thinking, and they're on the stage, and I'm thinking he's not, he might come back here, but I'm not going to get the first interview. This man, his name was Jenkowitz. I can still remember his name. This PR guy. They walk in this room, and Kucinich had done fairly well that night, and everybody, the TV cameras all go racing over for him by the door, and I thought, well, I'll wait for a second. And this Jenkowitz man stands up in the room and he goes, who's Scott Spears?
Oh.
And I said,
how
me.
about that?
And he walked Dennis Kucinich right over and sat him down with me.
Good.
And these TV stations, who's that?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Yeah.
So I gotta give him that.
Yeah.
He kept his word.
Yeah.
You gotta give the people their due.
That's right. Yeah.
And he did call during your birthday celebration we did one year. He did call and wish you a happy birthday.
Yes, he did.
He did. So
he's a nice guy.
Nice enough man.
But he's just not presidential.
No, and
material.
I think they voted him right. Yeah. So, in the end, you think you're going to side toward Biden?
Most likely, yeah. It's
well,
looking that way.
That's good news. Yeah, that's good news.
Do you think Biden is most likely to have the younger vote? Democrats usually do.
I think so. Yeah, I think that majority of people my age are. I mean, obviously that there are Republicans my age. You're bound to find them, but I think that the majority of people my age are more Democratic leaning.
Now, what about this $464 million that Trump can't raise in his bond case? Do you think they'll take Trump Tower? Because it's in New York.
Well, I mean, I'd assume they'd take Trump Tower. I mean, he got to pay the lien on that somehow, and I mean, he has 20 different companies, or at least 20 different companies. It was 20 at the time the lawyer said something, so...
But isn't the important part of this, Mary Ellen, that, I mean, this is a bond so he can continue on with his appeal. If he loses the appeal, doesn't he lose everything?
I don't know what the end... I think the end product is he goes to jail.
Oh.
Don't you think that's what the end is?
I know this is the fraud case. And I know he wants to appeal it so he can still do business. I'm not sure.
You don't pay your money, you go to jail.
Oh,
if that
the
was
bond.
me,
the bond, yeah.
that would be what happens. I would be in jail.
So why is that not happening here?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
He's not the average person, and they're giving him special treatment.
So have we learned over the last 8 years of Donald Trump that people are not equal under the law?
That's about it.
How did we get to the point? Somebody said
That's
this the other
bad.
day.
That's bad.
When did we start allowing threatening judges?
Yeah.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, and judges afraid to do something. There, some of them are afraid to do anything.
Well, I recently learned that most of these judges in these cases and prosecutors have death threats.
Yes, they do. That there's been a lot of bad stuff happen. Yeah.
I don't understand. Why are people sending death threats?
Well, you know, every time Trump got arrested or determined that he did something, his supporters would grow. I mean, everything would get better for him, and that is weird. I mean, it's really weird.
Well, I think a lot of people felt after the insurrection and the second impeachment that Trump was done.
Yeah.
But
we kept
not
thinking, we kept thinking he'd go to jail. He doesn't go anywhere. He's still out.
Do you think there's some problem in the United States that we do not want on World Vision, a former president in prison?
Well, I think a lot of people want him there.
I think a certain group, but I think the United States collectively, we've never had anything like that happen. And to have a former president in prison.
Well, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I think we are very self-conscious in the United States about how we look in other countries.
Well, we're looking pretty bad right now. I'm going to tell you, not getting anything
Well,
to Ukraine
I mean-
and Israel.
Well, that's
might-
another.
That's a mess.
I mean, it might look bad to lock Trump up, but I think at the end of the day, it would look worse on us to say, yeah, he did all of that wrong, but he was a president. You
Well, but
can't,
if
you can't
he's-
lock up a former president.
No, but I mean,
Of
if he's
course you can.
right,
Yeah,
I mean, if
He's
he's
a person.
Yep,
and
they
it-
just
well,
you
sure.
know,
And if he's convicted, I think that's probably what will happen. I don't think he'll be given
do
special
you
treatment.
think? So do you think they'll find them innocent because?
I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know. You know, there's 91 indictments out there. I really don't know.
Well, I mean, if you look at the
I
feds-
watched the OJ trial, and most people thought that was going to go another
Yeah.
way.
Well, I mean, like,
Right.
if you look at the Fed's conviction rate, the federals have like a 99.7 or something like that percent, like 98.7, something like absurd like that in terms of conviction rate. So 91 charges, you almost hit. If he had 9 more charges, he would almost be guaranteed to get off of maybe 2 of them.
Well, I would think the most trouble is going to be the Georgia case because they have the tape of him on the telephone saying, "Find
Yeah.
me more votes."
But the January, I think, well, and the his documents. That's so bad.
Oh, that's another one.
I
The
mean,
documents
he-
case.
He could have used those to raise money for
what did
himself.
he?
If he still had them, he'd
Did-
be
Oh, are you
raising
talking about
money.
the one that
Mar-a-Lago.
they got?
Yeah.
Did we ever learn why he kept those?
Well,
Who
he
saw
thought,
them?
He thought they were his.
Yeah, but who saw them? I mean, did he show them to people?
No, so I do believe the National Archives were just kind of. Well,
I understand that.
He did show them to people. They
But
were,
right, but
like,
who?
There was a
Who?
record.
But
I don't
the
remember.
people that came to Mar-a-Lago, he showed them to foreigners.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what's scary.
Well,
Yeah.
who did he show them to? Did he send them
He
back to
did.
Putin?
They know he showed them to somebody from Australia.
See, there are certain things that, like that, I question because this man had these documents for 3 years.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like they have text messages from when they asked him if he had these documents because the
Well, yeah.
National Archives were looking for him, and then Trump was like, ain't got them, and then they found on his phone text messages that were like, hey, you know those documents? I need you to move them. So like,
Yeah,
I
he
don't
tried to hide them.
I don't. It's mind-boggling sometimes.
It is. Anybody that would do that. Yeah.
Well, these cases are going to come up one day. I mean, you can only postpone them so long.
Well, I have a quick question. Do you think that any of this would have happened to Trump had he have just given the documents back? If he had just said, "Oh yeah, forgot about him," and then given the documents back to the National Archives?
I
Or do
don't
you think they
think
would have
they
just
would
let
have
him
done anything. You know, Biden did that.
just
He-
let him just let him go
but
away
he
quietly?
packed him up and took him in a plane down to Mar-a-Lago and then said he didn't have them. And he moved him again, put him in a bathroom or somewhere.
Well, I think they've even said that is the big difference between Biden and
Yeah,
Pence.
right.
Was that when they asked for him, they gave them to him.
Yep.
When they asked him for Trump didn't tell him the truth. And I think that was the problem. And that's
Yeah.
why they actually had to invade
Yeah,
down there at
just-
Mar-a-Lago
yeah.
to get him back. I mean, he never turned him over.
And then it just managed to get deeper from there.
So you got that case.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there is the January 6th issue.
It's bad too. It's such a bad one. That one with the girl is nothing. It's all these others that are so terrible.
Well, there's a lot of them out
Oh,
there.
But of course, he
the
was
hush
in
money
office
case.
when he paid that money, which is what makes it a situation. But if you weigh them all, that to me is probably nothing.
But he will just say, as he does at all these rallies, they're out to get me.
Well, of course
Oh,
he says that.
Yeah,
Yes.
a quote that a lot of people really liked that he said, I don't know where he said it, but in one of his speeches he gave, he said something along the lines of like, they're not coming for me, they're coming for you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just standing in the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And people took off with that. They loved it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
isn't that what most people you do who are, in trouble? It's us against the world.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think most people who are in trouble just say they didn't do it and it's some kind of an accident. But I think Trump it's different with him because he's saying that they're actively like going after me.
Well, we do know that his mentor was Roy Cohn, who defended Joseph McCarthy, and that wasn't.
McCarthyism?
Yeah.
Ah.
Roy Cohn is, I think Donald Trump has said that's who he mentored, or, never. What was Roy Cohn's philosophy? Never, just string it out. Keep going and deny.
Yeah, that was it.
And deny.
So
When you
that's
look,
what he's doing.
when you look back at the history of this country, we've had some doozies over the years. We had Joe McCarthy,
Yeah.
and we had, gee whiz, we had Oliver North at one point.
Yes, yeah, Oliver North. I listened to that on the radio when I was going up to testify at the Toledo, at the federal court.
Well, yeah, and that was the Iran missile.
Yeah.
The Iranian, that was,
That
which
was
I guess we
bad.
did. Well, then that turned into a whole mess because when Reagan was testifying, he just, I can't recall,
Yeah.
I can't recall.
Right.
And people kept saying, well, he's lying, and then we find out he has Alzheimer's.
Couldn't even remember anything.
And then people look and say, well, maybe he didn't remember what was going on. I mean, we've had some moments in this country, and I still don't think we ever figured out if George H.W. Bush was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal. I mean, he denied it till the day he died, but every few years something would come out that he did know about it. I don't know who knew what. I don't know. There's always something. That's what I always say. It's very hard. We've had very few presidents who didn't get something on them.
Yeah.
There's always
something.
There's always something.
Well, I mean, I think the range of things you do as president is so wide that, I think you're bound to make a poor decision at least once.
I
And I think
bet,
they're going to attack you for it.
I'll bet they didn't with Eisenhower, though. He was such a hero.
War veteran.
Yeah, and
Oh,
he,
not in, like, school or anything, but, like, I don't know that, people do like Eisenhower, but, like, there's things about Eisenhower that you learn that aren't necessarily good in Eisenhower's favor, in his favor.
well, that's true, but he took, I'm reading this book about 5 presidents by a guy named, Kurt Hill. And he went to Europe, and there were millions of people to all these countries, millions of people came out to see him, and he was a hero because it was right after the war,
And he won by huge margins
Yeah.
against Adlai Stevenson,
Yeah.
who people did like.
I liked Adlai Stevenson, but he didn't have a prayer.
No, but
No.
Adlai Stevenson, it's interesting to talk history because people don't get into it. Adlai Stevenson had these horrible losses to Eisenhower. He ran against him both times. The Democrats really knew they didn't have much of a chance against Eisenhower, so Adlai Stevenson was the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
And then he decides, Adlai decides he's going to run again in 60 now that Eisenhower's gone. But here comes Jack Kennedy, and Eleanor Roosevelt endorsed Adlai Stevenson, and then had to make up.
I remember that.
Yes.
Yes.
And then had to make up with Jack
Yeah.
Kennedy after that. Or
Yeah.
Jack Kennedy made up with her because he wanted her on his side.
Yeah.
But say all that to say this, people, kind of poo-poo Adlai Stevenson because of everything I've just said, but during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Adlai Stevenson was the American man in the UN, and he's the one who went down there for the United States and told Russia, listen, we're not doing this.
Really?
Yes, people forget that. It was
Yeah.
Adlai Stevenson was
Was
the
it?
represent, and people didn't think that he could do it because he was getting on in years at that point.
Well, I mean,
And he did.
he
Yeah.
barely.
Well, no, he did. I mean, we didn't
he
blow
like,
up.
Like he got it done, but
Oh,
it was like hours within the invasion.
That's
of
close
Cuba.
enough, as long as you get it done.
Oh, we were nervous. I remember being so nervous.
If
about
you look-
what was going to happen.
If you look up that tape, I think, because we had television then, Adlai Stevenson went down there to the United Nations, and boy, he laid into them. It was, the Cuban people and so on and so forth. And he said, listen, because Jack Kennedy, he was Jack Kennedy's guy, and he said, listen, you got to go down there and be tough with them. And he did. Adlai Stevenson.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Are you arguing about anything with your mother and aunt now?
Is it still going on?
I mean, is there anything that you argue with them about?
Oh, I mean, I argue politics with them all. I've been arguing politics with my mom and aunt since
Have you?
but you're on the same
since
side here, aren't you?
this year. Yes.
Yeah, but so
Yeah.
you still argue, though.
Yeah.
Uh,
But is there something new?
oh, this year?
Uh-huh.
Not this year, really. No. I mean, this year it's pretty
Okay.
even.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you follow the March Madness, Marielle?
No.
Really? People
No,
love to fill out those brackets.
I know everybody watches it but me.
I don't know anything about it, but I fill out the brackets.
Do you?
Just to see.
Oh, I bet you do pretty good.
It doesn't do bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to, people look at the records, and I think that's bad. I think you really just, because anybody can lose a game.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just got to guess.
Yeah.
Who you got winning, Scott?
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon.
I got UConn.
No, I'll tell you, Grand Canyon has a shot here because they have a very good record. People are discounting Grand Canyon. I think they have the best record right now in the NCAA.
I don't know anything about basketball besides.
Well, neither
the
do I,
fact
but-
that, like UConn, their team name is the Huskies, which first off, fantastic. Gotta love it. The Huskies are great.
Nobody wants to be called a Husky.
Where are the Huskies from?
Connecticut.
Oh.
And UConn, they've been one of the best. I mean, they're probably the best college basketball school throughout. I mean, in at least near history. I mean, they haven't been good like the last few years, but UConn is considered like one of the best schools for basketball.
It's the one thing I wanted to get into is we were talking about history here, and I think this is interesting. I was watching a show the other night on Lyndon Johnson, and a lot of people didn't like him. But I'll tell you, if you like him or hate him, he knew how to cut a deal.
Well, he did great in Congress. I mean, he ran that place with a iron fist.
I'll tell you, if had there not been Vietnam, I think Lyndon Johnson
Yeah.
might have went down as one of the greatest presidents.
He got the civil rights thing passed. And
Civil right and
gosh, he did a lot of
Head
good.
Start.
See the one that was
care.
bombing Cambodia?
yeah, there was that.
He picked up his dog by the ears.
Yeah, and he showed people his scar when he had his gallbladder out.
That did me in.
He was different.
That was it.
That was forget all this.
Yeah.
But two Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Civil Rights Act, and Head Start, and wildflowers all across this country with Lady Bird.
Well, she was a great person. I went to his school that he had down, from his being in office. It was great.
But Vietnam was the problem.
Yeah.
This has been fun. Time went by fast here, but Matt Morgan and certainly 40th President of the United States, Mary Ellen Withrow, and stay tuned because Eclipse Day, we're going to be giving you information on that as the weeks go by, which it's very close. For this episode of The Exchange, Scott Spears heading for the dugout.